Hello, I'm Courtney Johnson, Executive Director of the Center for Contemplative Research, the CCR. I join you today from the library at our Mind Lab in Crestone, Colorado. This is our hub for advancing the field of contemplative science. We do this through contemplative training, scientific research, and the development of educational curricula. Our mission intends to expand access to contemplative practice and discovery in a time that very urgently needs more balanced minds. Today, I'm honored to share a seminal talk from our founder, Dr. B. Alan Wallace, in which he describes the sixfold matrix of mental balance in response to the current metacrisis. This talk shares a framework based on decades of scholarship and research. We offer this now to summarize the root causes of our compounding global crises and to invite you into a clear framework for cultivating the ability to skillfully respond to the challenges we face. The first part of this talk, which lasts about an hour or so, is a diagnosis. It explores the causes of the disturbing global shifts that are increasingly conspicuous to all of us. While this diagnosis might be daunting, our intention is not to dwell on the negative or the nuanced interdependencies that drive the enormous challenges we see today, but rather, it is to help lay a foundation for fearlessly taking a close look at those afflictions within each of us that tumble forth and combine into a worsening metacrisis, sometimes even despite our best intentions. While science and many other disciplines continue important investigations into the specifics of these challenges that shape our future, it is also possible to understand where they come from at their root in our minds, when they are rooted in human intentions, decisions, and actions. And certainly, many of them are. But the most important message in this talk comes from the second part. So we invite you to hear the diagnosis of disease, knowing that the remedy is coming. Our minds are so powerful when we know how to unleash their full intelligence, discernment, and virtue. We may not quite know how to do this, but we can learn. And the second part of this lecture explores a specific framework, the sixfold matrix of mental balance, for understanding what a mind in balance is like and how to cultivate one. This is our mission at the CCR. Just as our afflicted minds can inflict enormous damage, balanced minds can positively influence trajectories that seem unalterable in ways that are equally or even more impactful. Our message today is one that encourages openness to how that change could look. It's a message that invites imagination, that challenges you to cultivate a mind that can picture what might seem hard to envision now, a shared future that quite possibly looks very different and much better than what we've known. There are ways to cultivate minds that can navigate upheavals with wisdom, equanimity, and creativity. We may feel it is difficult to imagine our way out of our shared reality now. But if we can look unflinchingly within ourselves, let go of what doesn't serve us and others, and cultivate what does, we can find and enact that vision within ourselves, our communities, and our institutions. May we create such conditions for those who will inherit the consequences of our decisions. If after this talk you feel inspired to learn more about the contemplative training, research, and education offerings of the CCR, or to support our mission, please visit our website at centerforcontemplativeresearch.org. And now, please enjoy this talk from Dr. Wallace. We hope you feel inspired to better understand and cultivate your mind for the benefit of all.
Good morning, everyone here in Crestone. Delighted to see you, friends and neighbors. And for those listening in from afar, good day to you wherever you are. It's wonderful we have this technology that we can share what's in our hearts and minds with those who are near and with those who are far, without differentiation. So this morning I'd like to address the topic that is the most pressing for everyone on the planet. I was about to say all of us human beings, but it's not just us. It's all of us. All the living creatures on this planet. Should be of major concern, especially to all of the human beings, because we are the ones that have created this metacrisis. It didn't happen to us. And it's we. It's 8 billion of us. It's not some bad guys over there. It's we have done this. And many people I think feel daunted by the enormity of this metacrisis, global climate change being foremost perhaps. Feeling afraid, feeling hopeless, and feeling powerless, because it's so massive. And the momentum behind this metacrisis has been building easily for 200 years. And so one could very rightly wonder, well, what can a single individual do? What can a single town do, even a single country do, to avert the crises that have already begun and the catastrophes, the suffering? What can be done? And it's very easy to feel hopeless. But then we're part of the problem if we feel simply hopeless. Throwing up our hands and say, well, let's just ignore it. Let's try to eat, drink, and be merry and do as well as we can from day to day. All of us, to varying degrees, are aware of the crisis, the metacrisis that we've created. It is very easy in our imagination as we're looking forward to get stuck there. To get stuck there, the metacrisis. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And then we stop thinking. Very easy to do that. Well, it will get worse. We've been hearing environmentalists tell us now for years, even decades, we're approaching the tipping point. We're approaching the tipping point. But it's not too late yet. If we take the necessary measures, we could avoid the full-on catastrophe. Well, we haven't. We haven't. And so we may be just feeling dread of what's going to be taking place, which will take place. We've hit the tipping point. We've passed the tipping point. And massive catastrophes will take place. And they will be accentuating over the coming decades. But it won't be indefinitely. It won't get worse and worse and worse just indefinitely. After a while, it has to taper off a bit. So to think beyond the metacrisis, to use our imagination, we can imagine the catastrophes that have already begun and how they will get worse. We can imagine that, although when it actually happens, probably we'll find that our imagination didn't quite live up to the reality. But what about beyond the metacrisis? In all likelihood, humanity will not be driven into extinction. Not going to be that bad. And I think it's not too soon to be already thinking about that future, beyond the current metacrisis, and to envision how it might actually be better than now. But just as we've created the metacrisis, if what lies beyond the metacrisis is going to be another kind of stage of evolution of humanity, flourishing in relationship with all the other species, with natural habitats, the ecosphere as a whole. If that's going to happen, if it's going to be an uplifting and inspiring, glorious future beyond the metacrisis, then just as we've created the metacrisis, it is we who will need to create that future, and we have to imagine it. It's not going to happen to us. We have to imagine it, and we need to sow the seeds for that future now. One by one by one. One individual by one individual, one community, one state, one nation. It can be a point or a process that galvanizes humanity to recognize what's always been true, and we've been told it's true by the great sages of the present and the past, that we, humanity, we are one. We are one humanity, despite all the difference of ethnicity, politics, worldviews, and so forth and so on. We are one. It's simply a fact. And we, as a species, we are living in profound interdependence. with all the other species with whom we share this earth, something like 20 billion versus 8 billion human beings. But we're all of a family. It's not just all human beings, but it's all of the sentient beings on this planet. We are one planet inhabited by one interconnected community of living beings living in profound interdependence with our inanimate environment. How can we turn that interdependence to our advantage and the advantage of all of our fellow creatures on this planet? So let's think about the future. Acknowledging, preparing for, bracing as much as we can for the metacrisis that's already begun. It's expanding, it's already developing now. But let's also think beyond it. For our children, our grandchildren, future generations, but also the generation right now. So let's look at the bad news. Here's just an overview. I don't think it's exhaustive, but the challenge we are facing now, unprecedented in all of human history, is multifaceted. It's not one crisis. And it's not just a bunch of crises, but we can put all of these together as we see these multiple facets of the metacrisis, that the whole is greater than the parts. And so I'll go briefly through this list. Pretty familiar, but the first one, of course, is global climate change. Scientists, climatologists, environmentalists, ecologists have known about this shift in global climate change since the mid-20th century. It's not news. And then it came much more to the public attention at the beginning of this century. You know the history. It's accelerating, and we caused it. First point. As a result of the global climate change, but so much more of our human abuse of our natural environment and abuse of our fellow creatures, we have done unprecedented damage to the ecosphere. A few statistics which are very, very sobering. Over these past 200 years or so, we have killed off 2/3 of the world's wildlife. 2/3. How could we're one species, how could we do that? But it is a fact. I've even noticed this. I was going to be an environmentalist, a wildlife biologist, when I was a youngster. But we've killed off 2/3 of the wildlife on the planet. We've mowed down 1/3 of the forest. We've destroyed 2/3 of the grassland on a planet. To put that into perspective, that much damage, one species, only 8 billion of us, and that's now. At the beginning of the 19th century, it was only 1 billion or so. Now we've multiplied that by 8. To put that into perspective, when was the last time that this planet and the life on it went through such a destruction? Think back about 65 million years ago, when this great asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula. It was about 6 to 9 miles in diameter, came and plunged into the Yucatan Peninsula. 65 million years ago. And it destroyed 75% of animal life on the planet. 2/3, 75%. But it hit once and then it stopped. But we haven't stopped yet. We haven't even slowed down of destroying our fellow creatures. So this is the worst it's been since 65 million years ago? Yeah, that's it. Okay, let's just now move to the list. Bear it. But very, very little of these points needs to be elaborated upon by me because you know them so well. It's in the news every single day. Unprecedented corruption in governments and the collapse of collaboration across differences. You know what's happening. And even like myself, I've been here since mid-century, 20th century. That seemed to be unprecedented. Drastic increase in the development, proliferation, and employment of weapons of mass destruction. We know, I don't need to give details, but it's unprecedented how we're we're getting a bigger and bigger and bigger gun, and more guns and more guns, and all pointing at our own heads. Toxic nationalism. Patriotism is a lovely word. But toxic nationalism is utterly destructive, leading to violent invasions, wars, and the threat of nuclear war. Unprecedented. Never happened on this scale before. Mental health catastrophes. Unprecedented rates of depression and anxiety, and it's global. And very much including the so-called developed countries, where life is relatively good, in contrast to the impoverished countries, where there's civil war, there's drought, there's famine, and so forth. But the depression and anxiety is very prevalent even in very developed, relatively prosperous countries, especially among the youth. Deaths among youth from suicide, drug addiction, and overdose, especially in the developed countries. What's wrong? What are they depressed about? Well, maybe I've already given the answer. If you're not depressed at that, then when are you going to be depressed? When's a good time to be depressed, if not today? But this is our youth, who see what my generation and the next generation have done to them. And they may be wondering, how could you? How could you? Didn't you care about us, your own children? And then pandemic. The COVID was just a warm-up. But pandemic and the likelihood of even more destructive types of pandemic diseases, viral and then bacterial. Just wait for that bacterium that is immune to all of the antibiotics. It's waiting to happen. It seems, from what little I know, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's just going to mutate, bacteria mutate, viruses mutate, we mutate, but they mutate very fast. We mutate very slowly. So that's like a hammer over our head, just waiting to drop. And then population growth combined with voracious appetite of hedonism and consumerism. So as I just mentioned, about 1 billion was the planetary population, human population, 2 centuries ago. Now it's 8 billion. That's how much we've grown. But with this voracious appetite for consumption, and by the time we get to mid-century of this 21st century, we'll add the population of the whole planet in the early 18th century to what we have right now. Another billion's coming. So it'll be 9 billion by mid-21st century. Okay, one could probably extend this list, but I think that's enough. If you are having a nice day, that nice day just finished. And it is worse than you imagined. I think it's worse, and it will be worse than we can imagine, because we've never seen the likes of this before. I was going to be an ecologist. I loved ecology because it was the science of the interdependence of all life on Earth and life, animate life, inanimate life, animals, the flora, fauna, and flora. And with the whole inanimate, that was the science that I adored. I was going to devote my whole life to it because it shows this profound interrelationship. No man is an island, no country is an island. No species is an island. It's worse than what we have done. And I always put this in the first person plural. What we have done is recent, and it's unprecedented, and it's escalating. Okay, that's the bad news. Where do we go from here? If I stop here, then I would say we should never come this morning anyway. But that's only the first slide. Let's keep going. But now, humanity, modern humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, people who look and act like us, at least look like us, modern humans have lived on Earth for about 300,000 years. 300,000 years. Could be even longer, but that's a rough estimate. But this current metacrisis was catalyzed only during the last 200 years. 300,000 versus 200. We've done more damage to the ecosphere, to other species, the natural habitat, and so forth. We've done more damage in the last 200 years than all human beings in the preceding 300,000. We think we're so smart. How smart is that? That much damage in such a short time? Vying in a competition with the asteroid 65 million years ago? So we have to ask a very important question. What unprecedented conditions led to our so damaging the ecosphere and imperiling human civilization as we know it? What was it that triggered this so recently that has been so unbelievably destructive? What happened? Why didn't it happen 1,000 years ago? How about 100,000 years ago? But it didn't. This all happened very recently. If the clock were ticking, it would be the last minute or two, last seconds before it hits midnight, you know. So this is not a rhetorical question, this is an imperative question. What have we done recently that's brought about this unprecedented and utterly catastrophic array of crises that all get bundled together because, like the ecosphere, everything is interrelated? Each of those bullet points highlighting the elements of the metacrisis, they're all interrelated with each other. It's not just a bunch thrown together, but they're all arising together and in profound interdependence. So why now? Why did this happen 200 years ago? We need a real answer. Because we don't know the answer, even after the metacrisis, we could repeat the mistakes we've done all over again. So what's the point of that? So then we looked at historical conditions. What happened over the last 200? What happened in the early and mid-19th century that catalyzed this in unprecedented ways? Okay, here's the list again. Well, the first one, especially relating to global climate change, the rise of fossil fuel-based industrialism and its resultant global urbanization. It really began in Europe. Great Britain was the dominant power at that time. Great Britain, with this huge empire on which the sun never sets. But it's not just Great Britain, it was the European countries. It wasn't China, it wasn't India, it wasn't South America or Africa. This industrialization and urbanization began in Europe. And the fossil fuel-based industrialism, that began early 19th century. The 19th century was really the heyday, the apex of European colonialism. Great Britain was the most successful, but many other European countries, going way back to Columbus, but especially in the 19th century, the European powers, and including America, an offshoot of Great Britain, post-colonial. Because I've lived for years in Europe, I feel half European myself, we felt that we are the civilized ones. We are the most advanced civilization. We, the British, the German, the English, Italians, and so forth, we're the most advanced, we're the most sophisticated. And we actually have a right, maybe even a divine responsibility, to share our civilization with the rest of the world, which frankly, compared to us, is not very civilized. So we went out with a sense of righteousness. We're going to spread across North America, spread across Africa, Asia, South America, Australia, and so forth, and we're going to spread civilization. And by the by, we're going to exploit the heck out of everybody we civilize. And we'll treat them all in a racist fashion. We people with skin pigmentation like me, well, we are better, you know. And we'll let you know that loud and clear. As we come in, civilize you, exploit you, militarily dominate you, and suck the natural resources out of your country, enriching us, and we're giving you the gift of our civilization. It was pretty vicious, the way we treated everybody who wasn't us. But we justified it because we're spreading our civilization. These two economic systems of capitalism and communism also grew up and really started to expand, almost like a metastatic cancer, in the 19th century. Capitalism, we saw especially in Great Britain, but then it was Europe, and then it went global. And communism as well, which came in a way as a compassionate response to the evils of capitalism. That was its response. Let's save the proletariat. Let's save the working man from the exploitation by the rich. But both of these emphasized economy, economy, economy. An expanding economy is the way to go. Whether it's a communist country, whether it's a capitalist country, the economy becomes primary. And there was this shift in the domination of capitalism and its echo, communism. Both of these, by the mid-19th century, adopting a new worldview. Scientific materialism. Science was really coming into a ripeness. In the mid-19th century, science was finally becoming a profession and not simply a vocation for the rich. Mid-19th century, as I'll get to it momentarily, education started to shift. But scientific materialism became increasingly a dominant way of viewing reality as a whole. That everything boils down to matter and energy. The whole of the universe, the ground of being, consists of configurations of matter and energy, and everything else in the university, like in the universe, conscious organisms, everything else, human beings, the mind, everything that happens is all emerging from the ground of being, which was matter and energy. Everything consists, within space-time, everything that exists consists of configurations of matter and energy and their emergent properties and functions. It's a worldview. That's not a scientific fact. That's a belief. It's like belief in God or belief in angels. It's a belief. But it's a worldview that by the mid-19th century was a worldview in which science was couched. Economics was couched. We know that Marx was a very, very strong advocate of dialectical materialism. He had a great admiration for scientific materialism. But as soon as you have a worldview of any kind, whether it's religious, whether it's materialistic, whatever it is, as soon as you have a way of viewing reality as a whole, what's happening, what's going on, that worldview will already, by the very nature of its being what it is, will imply a set of priorities. Given this type of world, what is of value, what is not of value? What has greater prioritization, what has less? That's naturally going to happen. And so the priorities that emerge from a view of materialism with the imprimatur of science upon it is hedonism. Now, by hedonism, I don't mean something vulgar. There are many people who embrace scientific materialism who are very sophisticated, have great aesthetic appreciation, and so forth and so on. But what I mean by hedonism, in the more elevated, refined sense of the term, is the sense that our happiness is to be found outside of us, through acquisition, through consumption, through sensual pleasures. But our happiness is going to come from what we get from the world. And that's hedonism. It could be wealth, it could be power, it could be prestige, it could be sensual pleasures, but basically a view of humanity now that's embedded inside of materialism, where fundamentally we are brains, and the brains are doing everything that we thought we were doing. We see this in the literature now for at least 20, 30 years. The brain does this, the brain thinks that, the brain remembers this, the brain, everything that we thought we were doing, and we thought maybe the mind was doing, now scientific materialism says, well, think again. It's the brain that's the agent. The brain is an organ. And in scientific materialism, it's influenced only by physical causation. So the brain is an amoral organ, and every bit as amoral as the liver or the spleen. There's no morality in neurons or synapses. So how do you find the good life? How do you find happiness within the framework of scientific materialism? Go out there and get it. Pursue it. But when there's a finite amount of things out there that can provide you with happiness and an ever-burgeoning population, you know that's going to lead to conflict. If I got it, you didn't get it. If America gets it, Mexico didn't get it, and so on. And people who didn't get it won't like that. So hedonism, in that sense, hedonism says, I don't have any ability, I don't have any resources of happiness alone. If I just go out to the high desert someplace and live by myself in a little cabin, I'm not going to be happy. Because I'm just sitting there in a room waiting for happiness to happen, but I'm not going out there and getting it. So solitude is like boring and sterile and a total waste of time. Don't just sit there, stupid. Do something. That's what hedonism says. And the more you do, the more you'll get. The more you'll get, the happier you will be. That's the promissory note. That's the advertisement on hedonism. Go out and get. And if you get more, you're going to be happier. And get even more, you're going to be even happier. Now, as soon as you have a set of priorities, what is the path to the good life? How are you going to be happy? How are you going to fulfill your heart's desire? And it's out there through acquisition and consumption. Then you know a set of priorities is going to determine in very large part the way you lead your lives. And the way of life that is clearly emerging out of scientific materialism and hedonism is consumerism. Has any of you ever heard of an economist saying, uh-oh, the consumer index is going down. People are not consuming as much. Let's get out the whip and get people to consume more. Doggone it, the economy might suffer because people are not consuming as much. And let's just consume and acquire as much as we can, because that's the path to the good life. Does that sound even faintly insane to you? It should. But economists are still saying that. And government policy is still pushing that. Oh, the consumer index is down. Let's fuel the economy. Let's take more of the natural resources from the environment and spur people on. Buy, purchase, acquire, consume. That right there, I say, that's just a clear recipe for disaster. Did people not see that coming? Was this kind of mysterious when I'm extremely bright to have figured that one out? But what goes hand in hand with this is another major shift. And it was the secularization of education. And it happened in the mid-19th century. It happened in Great Britain first, spread to America, and then it went viral. Until the mid-19th century in Europe, and Europe's colonies and post-colonies. Education, universally, was couched in a worldview, and in Europe that worldview was biblical. And the biblical worldview, whether you're a Christian or whether you're a Jew, is the universe is meaningful. God created it. The benevolent, all-compassionate God created this universe, and therefore it's meaningful. It's a meaningful world we're living in. And human beings, human identity, the very nature of human nature, it's meaningful because we're created in the image of God. That's got to be good, right? It's got to be meaningful if you're created in the image of God, made for perfection, as some theologians say. Well, then human life is meaningful. We're living in a meaningful world, and then ethics is not just something you made up. It's given by the ultimate being, creator of the whole shebang, and it said this is right and this is wrong. If you follow the right, that will turn out well for you, but if you follow the wrong, it will not turn out well for you. As you sow, so shall you reap. So that's a worldview you can really make some sense of, and you can feel, all right, I think I know what I need to follow the good and avoid the evil. My life is meaningful and the world is meaningful. And now let's put science into that. Well, that's what Galileo did, and Descartes and Newton, and right through almost all the scientists until mid-19th century were all Christian. Which means they were taking all of scientific knowledge and putting it into the basket of a biblical worldview. They didn't need to look to science for meaning, because they already had it. But they looked to science to improve human existence, our hedonic well-being, comfort, health, turns out education, communication, transportation, productivity. But meaning didn't come from science, meaning came from the biblical worldview. But that was under siege from the time of Galileo, where until then virtually all Europeans thought planet Earth, God made this whole world, and aren't those stars pretty? All 3,000 of them. That we're in the center of it, right? And everything rolls around us. Just look, you can see the sun, the moon, the stars, they all around. It's cool. God really loves us, but it's right in the center of the whole show. And Galileo said, well, not quite. We revolve around the sun. And then fast forward Oh, there are 2 trillion galaxies, each of them having anywhere between 100 million and 100 trillion stars. So actually we're a sideshow, a very tiny sideshow. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible gives a chronology of creation, how long it lasts, something like 10,000 years. Early 19th century, geologists said, well, not really. It became millions of years, became billions of years. Now it's 4.5 billion years since the earth was created. It makes a literal reading of the Bible pretty untenuous. But after all, we're made in the image of God. Until Darwin comes along, said, no, actually you're made in the image of your nearest primates. Naked ape. And if human beings are the only ones with more mortal souls, and now you're simply one more primate, and you've evolved from more primitive primates, and going way back 3.5 billion years to the first living organisms, it just became increasingly difficult to take a literal view of the Bible. Now, many sophisticated Christians and Jews said, well, okay, then we're just not going to take many elements literally. Extremely sophisticated Christian and Jewish theologians have weathered the storm of science to the present day and had very sophisticated and absolutely contemporary view of the Bible. But many just, they felt it's literal or it's false. And so there was a radical shift in the mid-19th century from education that was embedded in the ethics, the worldview, the meaning given to us by the Bible, to, from the time of Darwin and his cohort, his bulldog, Thomas Huxley. No, that worldview is simply wrong. We can't accept it. It's been repudiated by science. And so now we're going to replace the biblical worldview with the worldview of scientific materialism. And now science is couched in that. A world that is completely meaningless. Evolution is completely meaningless, acknowledged by the great evolutionists. Evolution is purposeless, meaningless, and non-progressive. And so now suddenly in Great Britain, and then it spread worldwide, what we're teaching our children from kindergarten on, right through postdoctoral work, is an education that is couched in a worldview that tells you the world is meaningless. It all boils down to matter. You boil down to matter. And ethics is whatever you project upon the universe to make you feel better. Meaning is what you project upon the universe to give you a way to get through the day. And that's how we've been educating our children for 175 years. Apart from religious schools here and there, but public education started in Europe, America, Australia, spread to Russia and China, South Asia, South America, and so forth. The European model of secularized education, with the colonialism, they spread it to all their colonies. And so now go to any major university on planet Earth, apart from a religious one here and there, and you see they're all modeled after this shift that took place in Europe in the 19th century. They're secular. And it does happen that the most prestigious ones, you know what they are, you know which universities, are the most materialistic. The most materialistic. They pride themselves. Hard science. And hard science is materialistic science. How is that going to turn out when you raise successive generations of children? Education, what they're told, this is truth. This is what the teacher tells you, this is truth. And they're telling you the universe is meaningless and you're just a brain. And ethics is whatever you say it is. Is that going to be depressing? My children wonder, what's the point? Okay, as a historical cause, well, it was an effect, but it's also a cause, exponential increase in the development of weapons of mass destruction. That's where science and technology, instead of being put to the service of humanity, as was the vision of the founders of science, Francis Bacon and so forth, it was for the betterment of humanity, and we take that same knowledge and we weaponize it. We weaponize physics, we weaponize biology, we weaponize chemistry, we weaponize psychology. We've done that. That's what our civilization has done. Why are we still calling this civilization? dramatic increase, unprecedented in the unequal distribution of wealth. There have always been rich and poor. But now, where the wealthiest 1% of human population on the planet own 43% of all the global financial assets, almost half, 1%. If you only have $1 billion, but then you multiply that by 10, and now you have $10 billion, do you think you're 10 times happier? How about 100 billion? Now you're among the elite. Are you now 100 times happier? If you have $1 billion versus merely mere 10 million, this has been scientifically studied. As soon as you have enough, that you're not worried, you're not anxious about taking care of your family and providing with needs, medical needs, education, food and shelter. As soon as you have enough, if you didn't have enough previously because you were impoverished, you're happier now that you have enough. That's good. But if you have 10 times more than you need, you're not 10 times happier. It's a scientific fact. It's been studied very carefully. If you have 10 times more than you need, you're not 10 times happier, let alone 100, 100,000, 1 million, and so forth. There is no increase of happiness beyond, now I can relax. I have enough. I can take care of my family. So there's something just profoundly immoral. These people who are just aspiring, I only have 100 million, but I don't have as much as he has. Never satisfied. You're not getting any more happiness except, now I'm the 5th wealthiest man on the planet. That's the only happiness you're getting. Whereas imagine that wealth distributed among the poor, the impoverished. It would dramatically increase their well-being if this 1% said, this isn't even making us happy. So why don't we just start distributing this wisely where it's really needed and elevating people's well-being by the million? But it's not happening. Okay, historical conditions, all of that's unprecedented. Not 500 years ago, not 1,000, let alone 100,000. And all of this, to summarize that point, all of this is traced to the mid-19th century Europe and America, where the growth of industrialism, the growth of colonialism, the growth of capitalism, et cetera, the growth of education are all considered to be signs of progress. Progress is a big term. And until World War I, Europe and Eurocentric countries thought we're progressing, we are the most progressed, we are the most civilized, and it's going to be rosy skies from here on until we started butchering each other to the deaths of 20 million people in the First World War, which resolved nothing. The Versailles Treaty was just an invitation for World War II. 80 million died in that one. Were the civilized ones? We wanted to spread our civilization to all the other communities, societies on the planet. Spread this, because we have. That's sobering. This is recent, and that was the catalyst. That's what I'm suggesting. And it came out of Europe. People like us. So it raises a profound and perplexing point. The enigma of human intelligence, and given this is now evolution, given the principle of parsimony that characterizes biological evolution, we raise this question. Why do humans have far more intelligence than we need for our survival and procreation? Because ask any evolutionary biologist, they will say, what's the point of evolution? It's survival and procreation. If you survive and procreate, you're a success. If you survive and don't procreate, you're a dead end. If you don't survive, then you're a dead end even before you got onto the road. It's evolution, adaptation to changing environments mixed up with genetic mutations. It's about just these two things, survival and procreation. It's not about getting better. There's no purpose, there's no meaning, there's no ascendance. It's just the environment's always changing. Do you adapt or not? If you don't, you die. If you do and you procreate, then you're a success. That's it. That's the whole of the theory of evolution. And again, parsimony. You adapt, you mutate, you change just enough to be able to survive and procreate. But you don't get 10 times more than you need, right? Parsimony is the key. A cheetah can run just about as fast as a gazelle, but not 10 times as fast. So enough to survive and procreate. That's evolution. There's no meaning to it. But as the environment shifts, you shift, and if you can run faster than the gazelle, then you survive. If you can't, then you don't. So there's no evolutionary reason for our extraordinary intelligence. The nearest ones are chimpanzees, gorillas. We have a frontal cortex that's just way more than we need. But that's just biology. But think now about what is uniquely human. Our language skills. We can pass on knowledge from generation to generation. We've been doing it for years, for centuries. Chimpanzees, gorillas, let alone alligators and crawdads, they can't do that. Language skills, memory, especially when you write things down, fantastic. Imagination, creativity, ingenuity, there's no parallel. We human beings are unique. So this brilliant theory of Darwin and Wallace, it has extraordinary explanatory power for explaining us as primates, us as a very sophisticated animals. But when it comes to what is unique about us, having 1,000 times more intelligence than we possibly need to survive and procreate, alligators are doing very well, and they have a brain about the size of a walnut. You don't need to be very smart to survive and procreate. We are way smarter than we possibly need to survive and procreate, let alone if we're surviving and procreating and creating weapons of mass destruction. There's no explanation. I've spoken with some world-class biologists. Why are we so smart? We don't need to be this smart. There is no biological reason for that, explanation for that. Our creativity, our imagination, our language skills, but also let's look at this ethically. Human beings have an extraordinary capacity for virtue. We could be so compassionate, so generous, so self-sacrificing. We can be noble. And we can learn how to be noble. We can learn how to cultivate virtue. We can learn how to cultivate wisdom far, far beyond any needs for survival and procreation. The saints and sages, East and West, recent and ancient, extraordinary and unique. We're an extraordinary being, extraordinary species. But our capacity for evil transcends all the other species immeasurably. For cruelty, for destruction, for sheer evil, for hatred, for malice, for destruction. There's no other species that even comes close. That's unique. So here we are, so intelligent, and our education system designed to make us more and more intelligent in the pursuit of hedonia. This is modern education. It's providing us with livelihood, and if we're successful, wealth. Provides us with the ability to become leaders, to become influential. Provides us with the possibility, education, to achieve fame, status, renown. But all of modern education is embedded in scientific materialism, hedonism, and consumerism. So the best colleges and universities and the best students coming out of them are the ones who become rich and powerful and famous, but not ethical. Not ethical. If that happens, that's fine, but that was not a prerequisite. Ethics really doesn't play much role in modern education, any more than it does in modern business or, frankly, modern government. So we're so smart, so ingenious, so intelligent. How can we be so intelligent and so utterly stupid that we're destroying the environment as if we have a planet Earth duplicate over there and we've completely wiped out this one? We'll just hop in a bunch of spaceships and go to the neighbor. There isn't any such. This is the only one. Mars is a really poor substitute for the planet Earth. You've been there as like planet Earth after we've trashed it. How can we be so smart and so foolish? There's Socrates wondering, This is what to come of you 2,500 years later? What's wrong with you people? We're using that same brilliant faculty of intelligence to destroy our only home with unbelievable intelligence, craftiness, cunningness, greed. No other species can come even close to the doing damage we're doing. And so this is the question, given our extraordinary levels of intelligence, of memory, imagination, language skills, why are we as a species and as individuals not becoming wiser, happier, and more virtuous with each generation and with each year of our lives? Isn't that a simple question? We have language skills. We can read history. We can read about what earlier civilizations did wrong, what individuals did wrong. We can learn about that and not have to repeat their mistakes. We have 5,000 years of history we can learn from earlier civilizations. Why are we doing worse than all of them? When we've acquired, we have in our books, histories, all of their knowledge and the knowledge that we acquired in the 20th century, where it said we learn more about the natural world in the 20th century than all the preceding centuries combined. Why aren't we happier? Why are we not happier? Why are we not wiser? And as a child grows up and gets educated, a little baby, we hardly know anything at all. But then we learn and learn and learn. We learn from our parents. And as we move into teenager, when we're why aren't we happier than we were kids? Because now we know so much more. And then we get to adulthood. Why are we not happier now than we were in teenagers? And when you get to my age, a geezer, why are we not happier than we were when we were middle age? Because generally we're not. How come? So these are not rhetorical questions. We need a really good answer for this. The enigma of human intelligence, for which there is no biological explanation. No biological explanation for our saints and our sages, or for any of these other unique and often marvelous qualities of human nature. Biology doesn't tell you why. That was not a rhetorical question. We need a real answer. There's a triad. Fundamental causes. We saw the historical conditions, but now what are the what underlies what happened in history over the last 200 years? And I think that rhetorical question is not rhetorical. It can be answered, and I think this triad here has enormous explanatory power. I'll call them three fundamental imbalances of the mind. Just give them names and then I'll unpack them. But we know these terms. They're very familiar. Who doesn't know the meaning of the word greed? Who doesn't know hatred? Who doesn't know delusion? Except we generally don't think of ourselves as being deluded. When we, colonialists, in the 19th century, were spreading our civilization and already exploiting the earth, wiping out species already in the 19th century, we didn't think we were deluded. Well, that's the thing about being deluded. You don't know you're deluded. And you may even, at the same time, while manifesting unprecedented greed, unprecedented violence, and cruelty, and unprecedented delusion, still feel, but we're the best. We're the developed countries. We're the civilized countries. And not even know you're part of the problem. So this metacrisis, this is a hypothesis and a testable hypothesis. This is not metaphysics, this is radical empiricism. Let's start with greed, but let's give it nuance, because I think very few of us in this room, maybe no one in this room, maybe nobody listening from afar, thinks, yep, I'm a greedy person, you got me. I doubt it. And probably you're right, comparatively speaking. There are far more greedy people here. How many billionaires are there in Crestone, actually? But let's unpack this in an interesting way, and not just, oh, he's such a greedy guy, or such a greedy country. Let's define it now with more sophistication to see whether the shoe fits. Not just for those bad people over there, or those greedy countries over there. Greed as a mental imbalance. It disturbs the mind. Due to an intense longing and striving for things such as, and all of these are outside, such as wealth, power, and fame, and sensual pleasures. And greed, this mindset of greed, views such things that out there to be acquired, to be gotten from the world and wrenched away from the rest of humanity. It views such things as wealth and so forth as inherently attractive. They are good by their very nature, inherently attractive, and their true source of happiness. Thinking that if only I were wealthy, I'd be so much happier. If I were really wealthy, I'd be really happy. If only I were powerful, a leader, respected, commanding other people, then I'd be happy. And if only I were famous, renowned, if only people knew me, that would make me so happy. Or if only I could just engulf myself in an ocean of sensual pleasures, grow from the food to the fragrances to tactile and sex and all the other things you can get. Oh, if only I were just wallowing in a great big pool of sensual pleasures, then I'd be happy. This is called a mental imbalance because it's delusional. It's not true. It's never been true. Wealthy people are generally not happier than middle-class people. Middle-class people are happier than impoverished people. But when you get into excessive wealth or great power or fame, I've known some very famous people. They don't strike me as happier than anybody else I meet that bump into on the street. It becomes a burden where you can't walk out the door with somebody who recognizes, oh, can I have your autograph? I'd pay big money not for that not to happen. But happily, I'm not in danger. But that whole notion that my happiness lies out there and I need to acquire it. And if I used my elbows to bump the other people away or step on the way, well, it's survival of the fittest after all. Once you're listening to Darwin, that's the nature of reality. And I'm going to evolve so I come out on top. Well, countries think that. Communities think that. Families think that. Individuals think that. And it's delusional. And fundamentally, it doesn't work. How many rich people are going back to cocaine and alcohol? Which you don't have to be rich to get drunk and get stoned. How many powerful people going back to what poor people could buy? Because they got up there and they probably are thinking, I'm so wealthy I should be happy, and I'm not. Now I feel a bit better. It's delusional. It's not just bad, it's delusional and very destructive. Now we understand greed as not somebody else's problem, but whenever we feel my whole happiness relies upon that person, upon that house, that wealth, that prestige, that job, that education, that's called greed. And it's fundamentally delusional. But now what happens if someone or something threatens to take away what you've gotten, that you're holding on to? Well, at least I've got a house. I have this. And somebody says, I'm going to take it from you. Hatred. I'm pursuing, I'm going out there trying to get it, and somebody gets in the way. They bump me aside. They got the promotion, not me. They got the money, not me. They got the fame, not me. So hatred. Again, I doubt that anybody thinks I'm a hateful person. But you ever experience a mental state, an imbalance that disturbs your mind, you no longer feel peace of mind. It disturbs the mind and it causes it to become malevolent. Resentment. The hand goes into a fist. Becomes malevolent and harsh in response to encountering obstacles to the fulfillment of one's cravings. I want something and somebody else gets in the way. I hate that, we would say. Gets in the way, or they threaten to separate us from the objects of our attachment. That which gives that feeling of security, of happiness. My net worth is, and people give a dollar sign. Hatred is ubiquitous. Human beings don't have a monopoly on it, any more than we have a monopoly on greed. But boy, we push greed and hatred far beyond any species ever imagined. Hatred, the source of all violence. Within the household, community to community, nation to nation. If you're threatening my well-being, I will retaliate. If you get in the way of my acquisition, I will retaliate. And maybe you can retaliate better than I can. All wars stem from this. And then delusion, maybe the most interesting one. Again, I won't ask for a raise of hands, but how many of you think you're deluded? Probably no hands would go up. Oh, just one or two. Well, you have my sympathy. Thank goodness I'm not deluded. Okay, now let's give some nuance to this. No, we're not in a mental asylum. We're not psychotic. But does the shoe fit? Delusion, as I'm defining it here, is rooted in the ignorance of the true nature of ourselves and other phenomena, including the nature of our own identity. Who am I? And rooted, and here very practically speaking, ignorance of what are the true causes of happiness and unhappiness. All of us sentient beings, humans, animals, and so on, we all want happiness, pleasure. We all want that. That is where we all come to unity. And we want to be free of unhappiness and pain. That's a given. We don't even have a choice. Okay, from now on, I won't want happiness anymore. And if somebody wants to hit me over the head with a club, it's fine by me, because no, we can't do that. We can't do that. All sentient beings want this. We want happiness, and we want it to be sustained. We want to be free of being unhappiness, and not for just a little while. I don't want it to come and clobber me again. But what are the true causes of happiness and unhappiness? And this ignorance results in a misapprehension of how phenomena exist, thus disturbing the mind. Well, let's just take the essence of that. What's this delusion about our own nature phenomena? That we take everything at face value, that things actually exist as they appear. Well, I look about all of you, you're totally over there, and I see empty space between us. So if I'm happy, I don't see everybody else getting happy. If I'm unhappy, I don't see everybody else getting unhappy. If you're happy, that doesn't make me happy, necessarily. So that feeling of autonomy, every man for himself. This is a self-made man. That's supposed to be a good thing. The sense of I am autonomous. I exist on my own. Ethnic groups, that's a different ethnic group. They're not like us. That language group, people with that worldview, that religion, that worldview, scientific materialism, they're not like us. That sense of radical isolation, autonomy, independence. And thinking that other species are independent. The habitat, the natural environment is independent. This is the absolute antithesis of ecology as a science. But do we ever have that sense? I have to look out for number one. That's what Darwin said. And he was just describing all of the species, including us. Have to look out for number one. If I look out for number one, then the rest of you get the crumbs off the table. That notion of autonomy, of separation, that's delusional. Refuted by science, it's refuted by the great sages throughout history everywhere. That's delusion. Do we ever suffer that? In a marital relationship, do we ever feel my side? I don't think I'd live with you because you're not making me happy. A friend of mine, long ago, he told me, I was maybe early 20s, he was an old guy, he must have been 30. And he told me about his marriage that broke up. And he said, during this marriage, I remember sitting over the morning breakfast table and glaring at my wife and feeling, you're supposed to make me happy. And you're not doing it. What was she thinking? You're supposed to make me happy and you're not doing it. So find somebody else who's going to make you happy. Is that what marriage is about? You're not happy, so find somebody else going to do it for you? Divorce rate 50%? Maybe that tells us how well that's working out. Let's look more closely at this delusion. It's the most interesting one. I'm suggesting here, something I think is empirically true, there's connate delusion. You see the lovely photo. Connate delusion means we're born with it. Those who are really very well aware of evolution and traits carried on from generation to generation. There are traits that we're born with. That's just true. And connate delusion, the ones we're born with, such as viewing oneself and all other phenomena as being inherent autonomous existence, that I'm contained within my skin. And you're contained within your skin, and between the two, there's only empty space. That sense of autonomy, that's connate. We're born that with it. Tendencies for greed are connate. You don't just learn that by having bad parents. That sense, my happiness is in my mother's breast, outside of me. Well, it is. So greed is connate. It can be cultivated or it can be managed or even diminished. Hatred is connate. We know a lot of other species experience greed and hatred and delusion. But these we're born with. These we're born with. Greed, hatred, delusion. Self-centeredness, the sense that my well-being is more important than anybody else's. It's connate. But connate doesn't necessarily mean immutable. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way you're going to be for the rest of your life. It can get worse. Hatred can become something applauded and approved of by your environment, parents, and so forth. Greed, you can get a lot of support for that. Greed is good, we've heard in some movie a long time ago. They can get worse. Delusion can get worse. But if they can get worse, they can also get better. But that can take some effort. Oh, acquired delusion. So that's connate. Oh, we can't miss acquired. We go to school and then we can learn a lot more delusion than we had before we got there. Look at this. If you take a look at that photo, you see, man, that looks glum. That looks really glum. They're all boys. And boy, they do not look happy. Acquired delusion, which one acquires in the course of one's life, such as belief in scientific materialism. No babies are materialists. But if that's what you're taught from kindergarten on, right on through, and the authorities, the teachers, the professors, those in power, are telling you you're just an animal, or worse, some very well-known philosophers say, you're a robot. The brain is your hard drive. You're just a robot. You're naturally not making any decisions at all. You're not making any choices because the brain does it before you're even aware of it. You have to learn that. Nobody thinks that naturally. Nobody's a natural materialist. Naturally greedy and hateful, yeah. But a materialist, no, you have to acquire that one. And you can get it hammered into you and brainwashed. That you start thinking of yourself as a brain. Where ethics is just optional, and it's what you make up anyway. So now we come back to this constellation, or these like orbiting planets of mental health catastrophes, ecological, geopolitical conflict, mistrust. This was brought to my attention just recently. But with the internet and the how do you say, the epidemic of misinformation, the misuse of AI, false news, of scams. Is there ever a day go by that you don't get some scam? By the way, my name is this, and I want to give you $1 billion. Oh gosh, let's find out. They're so good. It's all over the place. So many people have just become mistrustful of information altogether. There's so much of it, and so much is wrong and intentionally designed to manipulate and exploit us. Mistrust, polarization, tribalization. And then when it comes to economics, short-term only economic incentivization. And then increasing drugs. We have all these wars on drugs. How long has the American government been warring on drugs and warring on drugs? And yet, supply and demand. If people want it, they're going to get it. Drug addiction and death rates. Mental health catastrophes. So these can seem like they're unrelated. You look through the historical conditions to see that's how it happened. Go deeper. And this is a hypothesis. Look deeper and you're going to find greed, hatred, and delusion have escalated all these to create existential risk to humanity as a whole. So there's nothing religious about this, nothing faith-based about this. But I find incredibly enormous explanatory power in explaining why do people act contrary to their own well-being and that of their children. And not just say, oh, go figure, that's not good enough. Check this one out. Individually, in our own hearts and souls, communities, and so forth. Okay. That's something what's happening. And something of the historical conditions and fundamental causes. Now we need a vision. Without vision, then hopeless. We need vision for authentic human flourishing that's not riding on a wave of ever-increasing consumption and hedonia. That didn't work. Let's now envision, now let's use our imagination, social and environmental flourishing. Let's envision how would we love to see humanity evolve beyond the catastrophes that will unfold and escalate over the coming decades. But look beyond that. How would we love, what kind of a vision would we love humanity to embody that could be possible, where we are flourishing socially within our species and environmentally with all the other species and with the natural habitat at large. For us to flourish socially and environmentally, this has to be rooted in ethics and not something we make up. That's his ethics, that's my ethics, as if it's just, whatever your opinion is. It has to be rooted in ethics that's deep, that is embedded in the fabric of reality. Ethics as a non-violent and benevolent way of life. Non-violent. Towards your fellow human beings, towards other species, towards the natural environment. At least be non-violent. At least don't harm. Can't we agree on that? Whatever your belief system, metaphysics, that's your business. But this is not just something we make up. Non-violence, and when we have the opportunity, how about being of service? When you see somebody that's lost in a big city, give them directions. If you see somebody who just doesn't have enough to eat, well, give them something so they don't starve to death in the middle of your civilization. So harmony within the family. We know a lot of families have total disharmony. Why? Ethics isn't there. Ethics leads to harmony within the family, communities, nations, and among nations. When you look around to all those who are other members of the family and so on, if your basic operandi, your way of behaving is, well, at the very least, I'm not going to harm them. They don't like that. They'll probably retaliate. And when I can be of benefit, well, yeah, let's do that. Broader, expand the vision, harmony with the ecosphere, maintaining sustainable economies. Those are ones that are not always growing. Cancer grows and it kills. Economies that are always bent on expanding kill. How about sustainable economies where everybody has enough and without environmental degradation? When we think of native peoples around the world, the Native Americans, indigenous people all over the world, traditional cultures, and there are plenty of them, you can think of your own. These traditional cultures, indigenous people, they could maintain their life for millennia to come. We call them uncivilized. We have to bring them civilization, but they're the ones that didn't destroy their environment, that had sustainable economies. Because they weren't looking for anybody billionaire Arabahos or Hopis or anybody else. Nobody was looking for incredible wealth. They were there to enjoy life. And ethics is key. A harmonious balance of unity and diversity. I learned this as I was studying ecology as a young man. If in an ecosphere everything is the same, then if some virus or bacteria or something comes along and it kills one, it'll kill all of them. Because you're all the same. Kill one, you see one, you see them all. You kill one, you kill them all. Unity, overemphasized, is deadly. And forcing everybody to hold the same worldview, the same values, have the same allegiances. Because that's how the people in power think they will sustain their power, by having everybody beneath them think the same, behave the same, like they're all cogs in a machine which they're running. It gives them a feeling of security, and it's delusional. Because people don't like being cogs in a machine, and they like to be diverse. But if there's so much diversity that people have no sense of unity, everybody, but you're across the street, you're not like us over here. If you emphasize diversity and there's no sense of underlying unity, then it's dog eat dog. Because people get nervous with diversity. But if there's a balance, an underlying sense we are one, we're the same family, we're all interconnected. And to celebrate, isn't it wonderful we have different ethnic groups? Isn't it wonderful we have different religions? Isn't it wonderful we have different economies? Isn't that the richness of nature, that it doesn't look the same everywhere? That balance is a key to flourishing. Many governments haven't figured that out. Many families haven't figured that out. Where the father demands, the children, you will follow me. If you don't, you'll know the consequences. You will be like me, or you'll get punished. Well, that's just a way to make revolutionaries out of your kids and make them want to reject you forever. So there it is. That's manifest. It's out there in the world. Social and environmental. You can see it. You can enact it. It's in the way you behave. But then we're not just social animals. We've had that drummed into us so often that we forget what's it like to be a human in the universe, alone in the desert, gazing into the sky, gazing around the world. And here I am. I'm in the center. If I turn my head in 360 degrees, I'm in the center of my universe. Everywhere that's to the east, that's so. But what are you worth? What are you good for on your own? Can you flourish on your own? Can you flourish from within without having to go out to your social connections and media and entertainment and so forth? Can you be quiet and alone in your solitude? And you then begin to discover your inner resources, which you might be oblivious of if you spend all of your time in social interaction, always moving, moving, acting, acting, acting. But what about sitting alone quietly in your chambers? One great philosopher from the 18th century said, Pascal, philosopher and mathematician, he said the trouble with modern man, that's 18th century, is our inability to sit alone quietly in our chambers. That's deep. He was also a devout Christian. Psychological flourishing. Can you flourish within your own skin, within your own mind, without having to go out for hedonia? It's rooted in mental balance, the opposite of mental imbalances like greed and so forth. And it's cultivated through practices to achieve a sublime equilibrium in body and mind. Psychological flourishing. It takes training. It takes work. It takes instruction, wise instruction. We know about evolution, but what about individual evolution? Can we, over the course of the decades of our lives, can we evolve psychologically, become more mature, more balanced, more empathetic, more wise, more friendly? Can we cultivate these qualities? That when you're sitting quietly, you don't just go into a total meltdown of distraction or boredom. A scientific study done some years back. Put people in a room all by themselves, pleasant room, nothing uncomfortable, and they just get to sit there. But one option is they can put their finger into an electric socket and get a very unpleasant electric shock. But those are your only two options. Just sit there, or two-thirds of the men just couldn't handle it, and they went for the socket. 1/4 of the women went for the socket. That just tells me women are generally more sane than men. One of them, 125 hits in 15 minutes. He was the outlier. Anything better than having to be just present with my mind, because that's torture. I can't stand it. And I'd rather, well, at least this I understand. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that really hurts. But it's better than just sitting there. Cultivate flourishing from within. You can do that in solitude. You can do that with other people as well. Spiritual flourishing rooted in wisdom. A deeper dimension beyond that cannot be reduced to the psychological or the biological or the neurological. Cultivated through radically empirical inquiry. That means free of bias. Leave your assumptions behind and look carefully. William James's theme. Radical empirical, with a totally open mind, ready to be surprised. Cultivated through radically empirical inquiry into the nature of consciousness and its role in the universe itself at large, resulting in supreme well-being through knowing reality as it is. That's quite a sales pitch. I know a lot of scientists. I've worked collaboratively with in research for now 30 years or so. And all of the astute ones, and they generally are very astute, they acknowledge, well, we as a scientific community, one of the great mysteries for us universally, we don't understand consciousness. Because the strength of science has always been from the time of Galileo. The strength is looking outwards to the objective, the physical and quantifiable. And science is darn good at that. And all the technology that's come back is stellar. I love that we have this technology. I have a cell phone. It's 4 years old, but still it works. You know? But consciousness remains a mystery. What is its role? I studied cosmology when I was an undergraduate. Read one book after another. Books, here is the evolution, the history of the universe going back to the Big Bang. You know, not one textbook on cosmology ever mentioned consciousness. It was so irrelevant, insignificant, a mere accidental byproduct of complex neuronal interactions. They never mentioned consciousness. So insignificant, well, we don't know anything about it, but who cares? Because what we don't know can't hurt us, or couldn't be very important. Spiritual flourishing. That's the great frontier. That's the great unexplored frontier. I've had a lot of scientification, I've worked a lot with scientists. Many of my best friends are scientists. And it's very easy to think, as one of the great fruits of Eurocentric civilization, China, India, all that, they've learned it from us. Now they're surpassing us in some respects. But it's widely assumed in the scientific community, if we don't know, nobody knows. As one friend of mine, a physicist, a very fine physicist, said, we, speaking for the scientific community, we don't understand the nature of consciousness. And then he added, nobody does. If we don't, then how could a non-scientist know? Because after all, we're on the cutting edge of knowledge altogether. So if we don't know, well, we don't know better than everybody else. Well, lo and behold, there's another whole approach to exploring reality that scientists know virtually nothing about, where understanding, fathoming consciousness is at the very core of the whole endeavor. Understanding the nature, the potentials of a mind is at its core. Western science evolved for 300 years before we even began studying the mind in the late 19th century. It was an afterthought and immediately embedded in scientific materialism. Well, that's like putting a noose around its neck. Contemplative discoveries, those two words, discovery and contemplative, they're hardly ever put together. They are here. What about contemplative? Have those contemplatives, Hindu, Christian, Buddhist, Taoist, and so forth, have they discovered anything, or are they just off there finding peace of mind and loving everybody and doing rituals? In fact, contemplative discoveries have been going on for thousands of years. But you'll never know that if you've colonized every country that has it and bring in supplanting their education with your own. Contemplative discoveries, and I've been looking into this for more than 50 years now, so I know a little bit what I'm talking about. Contemplative discoveries made by the great contemplatives East and West throughout history, unlike science, it's just a difference. Of necessity, contemplative discoveries are rooted in ethical integrity. You can be a great scientist and be very unethical. That's true. Science wasn't designed to make ethical people. But you can't be a great contemplative and be greedy or hateful or delusional. You can't be. You won't make discoveries if your own behavior is violent, egocentric. It must be rooted in virtue, and virtue consists of behavior of body, speech, and mind that is conducive to one's own and others' genuine well-being. Now that's a definition of virtue that's not rooted in any metaphysical system. You don't have to believe in God or nirvana or reincarnation or anything else. That's radically empirical. And we'll get to genuine well-being very soon. But virtue is a way of behaving with body, speech, and mind that is conducive, supportive, nurturing your own genuine well-being and that of the people around you in a spirit of interdependence. It has to be rooted in ethics. When science supplanted the biblical worldview, scientific materialism, it was felt by some of the originators of scientific materialism and science education that ethics would flow right out of science naturally, that scientists, the more knowledgeable they'd be, more ethical. Whoops, not true. Not true. There are many ethical scientists, some because they're deeply religious, and others because they're good people. But they're not good people because of the science. Now, a term that I've coined, but I think it really works. All the branches of science that have really progressed, sometimes unbelievably, like astronomy, with Galileo's little 3-power telescope that grew to 20-power telescope, to the Hubble telescope, and the James Webb Space Telescope. Man, what progress. And in so many other fields, but that's just one spectacular one. From thinking that the sun is the center of the universe to 2 trillion galaxies, because we had better technology. Better technology. What about contemplative technology? Where understanding the mind, the potentials of the mind, the nature of consciousness is the primary, beginning, middle, and end, is a primary focus of contemplative inquiry. You need technology. And the technology is not mechanical, it's not external. With all the external gizmos, technologies, instruments of measurement of modern science, none of them can measure the mind. None of them can detect consciousness. None of them can detect subjective experience at all, just the neural correlates and behavioral expressions. But subjective experience, consciousness, all mental states are not objective, they're not physical, and they're not quantifiable. So science is not going to get you very far if that's all it's focusing on, but contemplative is going back for thousands of years. Having developed mindfulness to a very high degree, introspection, which has been pretty much shunned or disregarded altogether in the modern scientific study of the mind, and then refined attention, highly focused attention, like moving from a flashlight to a laser. That's brilliant technology, from a flashlight to a laser, and all the things we can do with a laser. What about the light of consciousness that illuminates all manner of appearances, all manner of phenomena? They would all be invisible were it not for consciousness. But what if you take the light of consciousness and you focus it, empower it, energize it, and use it as a laser to probe into the very origins, the nature, the potentials of consciousness? That's the technology. The Indians developed it first, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. And then it spread to China, to Southeast Asia, and so forth. Eurocentric got left out. When we have children or adults getting ADHD, we don't give them attention training, we give them drugs. Ritalin, Adderall, we give them drugs. That, I think, from a contemplative perspective, is called barbaric. Because you're treating only the symptoms and even the medication wears off. So far from developing attention skills, we're living in a world where the Eurocentric civilization is now burgeoning with more and more ADHD. People's minds are addled. Very difficult to focus, and that's depressing. But as there is technology for scientific inquiry, there's also technology for contemplative inquiry, contemplative science. Knowledge, that's what science means. It means knowledge. But derived by way of contemplative inquiry, this entails rigorous theoretical and experiential inquiry, rational inquiry, radically empirical inquiry into the fundamental issues that remain a mystery to modern science, but not a mystery for deeply contemplative cultures, most of which have been driven into extinction, into the origins, nature, and the destination of the mind. How did mind consciousness emerge in the first living organisms billions of years ago? We don't know. Scientists don't know. In a human fetus, when does it become conscious? And under what conditions? This is what the contemplatives are looking into. The origins of consciousness, the nature of consciousness. And what happens at death? Scientists have only beliefs rooted in materialism. Oh, when you're dead, you're dead. They treat that as if it's, oh, well, that's science, that's fact. It's not science, it's not fact, it's belief. They don't know. I'm not putting them down, but if somebody doesn't know something, you can say you don't know it. Scientists don't know where the mind emerges from. They don't know the necessary and sufficient conditions for consciousness. They don't know. Therefore, if you don't know what causes consciousness, you don't know what terminates consciousness, if anything does. So the belief that, well, if you're really a realist, when you're dead, that's just a belief. It's not corroborated by evidence. And contemplatives say, and it's also, by the way, not true. Energy is conserved. Matter is conserved. Consciousness is conserved. It's in the very nature of the universe. Consciousness is fundamental. Sounds like a belief. It is for people who don't know it. But so is the fact that the earth revolves around the sun. How many people could actually prove that? But some people know it, and then we know because they know. Origin, nature, and destination of the mind. What is more essential to human identity than our minds? The inner causes of mental distress. We speak of genuine well-being, which we'll get to, but what about genuine unhappiness? Not being people talk about that. What about genuine unhappiness? You're unhappy and you don't have any reason why. You're rich, you're comfortable, you're good health, you have a happy family, people admire you and respect you, and you just don't want to get out of bed in the morning. Genuine unhappiness that you can't point to why. It's just coming from within. That's genuine happiness. That's interesting. Doggone it, why are you not happy? I don't know. Genuine unhappiness. That's interesting. If a person is suffering because they don't get enough to eat, that's not interesting. It requires help. There's no mystery there. What are the origins of genuine unhappiness? And what are the origins of genuine well-being that's not contingent upon hedonic stimulation? Big picture, what's the role of the mind in the natural world? Cosmology, none. Because they just think, sufficiently complex, stir the pot, and say abracadabra, and poof, consciousness just pops out like a genie out of a lamp. But that's magic. That's just speculation. They don't know that. That's just, they don't know what else to say. What's the role of the mind in the natural world? What's the meaning of existence? The Bible gives us some, scientific materialism gives us none. But what is the meaning of existence? What is the ground of being? The deepest questions. Contemplatives have been tackling these questions. And although, of course, there are differences in Christian mysticism and Buddhist and Hindu and Taoist and so forth, this was where I did my Ph.D, comparative contemplative inquiry. And sure, there are differences, that's great. But even in quantum mechanics, quantum physicists come up with multiple interpretations of quantum mechanics. They don't just all agree. Scientists have been disagreeing for a long time, but they also have a common base. But this we agree on, and this is cutting edge, and we don't know yet. Contemplatives disagree in here or there, but if you look closely, and I did for years, wow, they have discovered a lot of things where there is corroboration across disciplines. That could be important. So now, as time is going by, I think we're right on time, in case you're wondering. Not too late and not too early. Here's part of a vision. We have to get through the next couple of decades. We have to get through it. It's going to be awful. It's going to be unbearable. And some will suffer far more than others, generally the people that are poor already, in the so-called underdeveloped. They will generally suffer more. But we're all going to get a taste of it. We're all going to get a taste of it, and it's going to be awful. But how can we weather the storm? How can we rise to the challenge of what will be occurring now in the Metacrisis? And how can we rise beyond that to a better future than we've ever experienced in the past? Here's a hypothesis, a possibility. As we have the three mental imbalances that are the root of all evil, the root of all evil. If mental imbalance is the root of all evil and suffering and misery, then mental balance is going to be the antidote to that. That's obvious. That's linguistics. But rather than simply saying, well, this person is very mentally balanced and this person is mentally unbalanced, let's bring a bit of nuance to that. It's not just one glob of balance or imbalance. We've already saw the three kinds of imbalances are different. But now as we're envisioning, how sane could we be? How mentally balanced could we be in a rich and multifaceted way that includes, and we're going to go like a clock, start at the top at midnight, conative. A term that's not in the common parlance, but it's extremely important, and it hasn't made its way. I'm an evangelist for the term conative and conation, because it's so important, but hardly anybody be psychologist. It means conation is an umbrella term for desire, intention, aspiration, motivation, and goals. What is the meaning of your life? What are you striving for? It determines the direction of our lives. Conation. Simply put, desire and attention. What do you desire? What is your heart's desire? What are the desires that if you follow, you feel you will find the fulfillment that you seek? What are your intentions? Desire and intention are not the same. But what are your intentions? What are your intentions? It's conation. It can be wise, it can be foolish. Ethical, we'll get to that. Attentional, we kind of know what that means. Cognitive, are you seeing reality as it is, or are you distorting it and completely bollocksing it up because of all your projections or blindness? Conative intelligence, emotional intelligence, this has been happily come into the common parlance over the last few decades. Emotional intelligence, it really means something. And it's been researched. I know some of the top researchers, fine people. And then spirit, and then finally, on this clock, we come around to the culmination, because there's a sequence here. If you have cognitive intelligence, you may be inspired to develop ethical intelligence. If you're inspired to lay an ethical foundation, you may see, boy, my attention is in shambles, hard to focus. If you develop your attentional, you might say, I'm focused, but I have blind spots. Take one example, misogyny. You heard of it? In the 19th century, it wasn't a problem. Because all the men simply knew, well, women, of course they're inferior. But they're really good at raising kids. But don't waste an education on them. They're not going to raise their kids any better if they learn biology. Misogyny was just given. And so if a father had a brilliant daughter, say, you're going to make a real good wife for somebody. You're going to get a real good mother for somebody. But waste an education on you when I can give it to my son who's not very bright? But he'll get a job. He'll really do something. But you, sweetie, you're just cute as a pumpkin. And that was fine. One of the great things that happened in the 20th century is that is not fine. And the problem's not over, but man, it's not as bad as it was in the 19th century. Misogyny. Everybody thought normal. Racism, just normal. 19th century, racism is just normal. No, it may be normal, but no, it's wrong. And then emotional intelligence, spiritual. We'll get to it. But there's a wheel. There's a matrix, because they're all profoundly interrelated. This is complex, and I won't be able to linger, because time is moving on as it always does. But there's a sequence from top to bottom. The foundation of all of it is cognitive. On the basis of that, ethical. You won't be even inspired to cultivate an ethical way of life unless you see it a priority. That's cognitive intelligence. To that, attentional, to cognitive, to emotional, to spirit. And then this theme of balance and imbalance. This comes from, because I was the primary originator of this matrix, but with so much help from so many other people and the education I've received. Some awareness of Indian Ayurvedic medicine, one of the brilliant traditional systems of medicine on the planet. And then traditional Tibetan medicine is largely rooted in and resonant with Indian Ayurvedic. And that one I have a fair amount of experience with. And the theme of balance and imbalance runs right through the very core. Three fundamental constituents, Vata, Pitta, Kapha in Sanskrit. When they're a state of imbalance, you're sick. When they're balanced, you're well. The whole notion of balance runs through the great contemplative traditions of the world and traditional traditions of medicine. So, but there are different types of imbalance, and what I'm doing now is applying what I took from traditional medicine, Indian and Tibetan, and applying this to the mind. There's balance, which means healthy, which means conducive to genuine well-being. But for each of these 6 aspects of intelligence, there are also imbalances. And going back to traditional medicines, it can be too much hyperactivity, too little, or dysfunctional. So I started developing this maybe 20 years ago, having already had some exposure and translated 2 books on Tibetan medicine. But the first thing that came to mind is ADHD, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. If your attention is hyperactive, you can't focus on anything more than a couple of seconds, which means what kind of an education are you ever going to get? You may have the best teacher in the state, but if you can't pay attention, you're not going to get what was given. You won't receive it, because your mind is scattered all over the place. Or You're just falling into laxity, and the teacher is giving this brilliant lecture, and you're just fading out. Too much, too little. They're both imbalances, and they're both debilitating. How can you even have a really meaningful personal relationship if in a relationship you can't even focus on the other person? Or you get bored so quickly, the person is talking and talking and just spacing out. Oh, you said what? What? Oh, yeah, there you are. Too much, too little, and then dysfunctional. Let's just take, for example, attention. And you just can't get your mind off of alcohol. You're really focused. You can't pass a bar without thinking, oh, I'll just nip in for just a little one. You can't, or you're fixated on another person, optic or sensual desire or whatever. Or you're fixated on this thing or that thing. You're very focused, but you're focused on things that really are doing you harm. Drug and alcohol are obvious. So too much, too little, and dysfunctional. That's core to these traditional systems of medicine. Too much, too little, and dysfunctional. And all of these states of imbalance, all of these states of illness, all of these states undermining genuine well-being. Let's go to the first one. This is the kick, in a football game, this would be the kickoff. This is the foundation for all the rest. If you get this one, you can understand all the rest. If you don't get this one, the rest is like a building with no foundation. Conative Intelligence. Are you wise in your desires, your motivations, your intentions, your goals? Or are you following a fool's errand? Children that are taught, we're giving this education so you become rich. A young person saying, I want to be a millionaire before I'm 30. It's a fool's errand. You'll be either disappointed because you didn't get it, or you'll be disappointed because you did get it. But they never satisfy. Contemplative intelligence means fundamentally prioritizing genuine well-being over mundane happiness. Now this distinction, the Greeks called eudaimonia and hedonia. Socrates was brilliant. Check him out. Brilliant. The meaning of life is eudaimonia. The other one's meaningless. It's just pursuing this, that, and the other and never finding any satisfaction. Socrates was brilliant. As a philosopher, not as a religious person. Aristotle was brilliant in Nicomachean ethics. Brilliant, drawing this distinction. And then, as a religious studies scholar, where my Ph.D. was, I look into all the religions of the world, major religions, and they all draw this distinction. All of them do, East and West. There's hedonia, well, we share that with animals. Eudaimonia, that may be unique to human beings. Why not be fully human rather than seeing how brute and an animal we can be? It's universal. It runs through all the great religions of the world. It runs through great philosophies of the world. Socrates, Aristotle, it doesn't stop there. It runs through Christian theology. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, wrote brilliantly about the distinction between these two. In the 20th century, with the rise of positive psychology, psychologists have jumped onto the wagon, finally, better late than never, and drawing the distinction. Positive psychology. There's genuine well-being, and then there's the other kind that we share with animals. Get, consume, compete, knock the competition out of the block. But eudaimonia is making you really human. Prioritizing the kind of well-being that comes from within. Not discounting, you need enough to eat, food, enjoyment, pleasure, human interaction. Good. But they'll never provide you with the satisfaction that you're looking for. Eudaimonia does. So mundane happiness, what is it? The way I'm defining it. It's not bad. I enjoy a good meal as much as anybody else. I know nobody's ideal, but still, the Dalai Lama, I'm sure he enjoys, a good meal. Everybody enjoys a good meal. What's wrong with that? Mundane happiness is stimulus-driven. It doesn't happen unless you get a stimulus. And it stems from sensory, intellectual, or aesthetic stimulation, something arouses you, or from biological influences on the brain, like drugs and alcohol. It'll make you happy for a while, until it doesn't, or until it kills you. But it's stimulation. No stimulation, no mundane happiness. But it never satisfies. You'll never have enough. The people who only have $80 billion, yeah, but I don't have 100. There's somebody above me. I want to be among the top 3 and not just among the top 8. and for power and wealth and sensual. It is something pursued. We speak of the pursuit of happiness. Well, that's the pursuit of hedonia. You don't pursue genuine well-being because it's not out there, you can't find it and capture it. But mundane happiness, yeah, you can. It's the other person, it's something out there. You pursue it, and it's derived from what we can get from the world. There's the catchphrase right there. Mundane well-being or hedonia is what you get from the world. And there's a finite amount of it out there. And everybody wants a bit of the pie. And if you have 43%, the people who got the rest will not be happy with you. It's not stable. We're very familiar with that. Animals know all about that. All about that. Even prestige and power. Are you the alpha male? You're not? You wish you were. Wait until it gets older. You can bump them off. Genuine well-being. Go back to Socrates. Go back to any of the wisdom traditions in religion, philosophy, and now modern science. Genuine well-being, eudaimonia, arises not from what we get from the world, but from what we bring to it. If you bring to it, you can't lose it. If you get it, you can and you will lose it. It's only a matter of time. Nobody goes into the grave rich. They leave all their wealth and prestige and power outside of the grave. You lose everything. It's a casino. And the casino always wins. At the end of the day, you're always left with nothing. Genuine well-being, hold the show. It's what we bring to the world. It's something to be cultivated through training in ethics, psychological balance, and wisdom. It's to be cultivated from within. Therefore, the cultivation of eudaimonia is never, ever, ever competitive. If I have more, nobody has less. There are no wars that have been fought over eudaimonia. It's always over hedonia. That's foundational. There are both. Neither one's bad. One will never satisfy, the other one can. One is always competitive, the other one's never. One is what you get from the world, the other one's what you bring to the world. There's a foundation. If you know what's good for you, then you'll cultivate Conative Intelligence, and you'll manifest that in your behavior, if you know what's good for you. Ethical intelligence, bottom line, do no harm, try to be benefits. That is not metaphysical. It's not based on any belief system, but nobody wants to be harmed. Then don't harm. Everybody likes it when people are kind and generous. Well, then be kind and generous. It's simple. Ethical conduct of body, speech, and mind nurtures one's own and others' genuine well-being, whereas unethical behavior undermines it. Here's a whole way of viewing ethics, which philosophers have debated about for millennia, different ethics in different religions, and positive psychologists. I asked one in top of the field, I said, what role does ethics have in positive psychology? And maybe he's changed his mind, I hope he has, but he said, none. Because science is to tell you what is and not what should be. And ethics is what should be, and that's not our bailiwick. I hope he's changed his mind by now. Because he says science is value 3, but it's never been value 3. So I hope he's learned better since then. That's why I keep him anonymous, because maybe he no longer believes that. The way to develop ethical intelligence, and for all of these 6, they can be developed. That's an empirical fact. Maybe not for us, but it is for others. The way to develop ethical intelligence is to recognize mental imbalances such as greed, hatred, and delusion as soon as they arise, and then train oneself to refrain from acting upon those imbalances. Right now, I wouldn't be at all surprised if nobody in this room is explicitly experiencing some greed, some I want, or hostility, anger, resentment. Very possibly nobody. I don't think I am. I'll check. I'm fine. Relatively balanced. Not perfection, but, sane. Recognize when you have that equilibrium, that you haven't tipped into an imbalance, such as greed, craving, selfish, manipulation, exploitation, or hatred, resentment, anger, hostility, neither one, or into I am better than you are, me, I'm first, every man from, you haven't done that. For all 3 of these, they're not gone, but it's like malaria that's gone dormant. Right now, are you symptom-free? Like malaria. And then it hits you again. Oh, I'm having now another bout of malaria. Pretty awful, I understand. But recognize when you're in a relative state of equilibrium. We're not talking about something exalted and noble here, but right now, are you mentally balanced? Yeah. Yeah, I think I am. Perfectly no, but relatively yeah. But then, watch when there's a surge of, I want, or I don't like, or don't you know who you're talking to? Don't you know who I am? Cock-a-doodle-doo. Where ego bursts up like a great big dragon. Recognize when they're not there, and recognize when they come up. And when you see that selfishness, self-centeredness, greed, whatever, when you see it come up, it's like contracting COVID. If you're a responsible person and now you know you have COVID, what's the first thing you do? Don't go around hugging people. Don't socially interact. Quarantine yourself. Don't manifest it. Or as one friend of mine, a very astute psychologist, said, between the spark of some mental imbalance arising and the flame of expressing it out in the world, where other people then get damaged by it. And then it's contagious. Between the spark and the flame, recognize the spark and don't let it flame out. You'll be doing the world a great favor by being inactive. So the way to develop ethical intelligence then continues the imbalances of our minds. They distort one's vision. Greed, hatred, delusion, and there are a bunch of derivative ones. The problem is that they distort our vision. We don't see clearly. If we're viewing another person with greed, with, I want that person, I want something from that person. It could be sexual, financial, anything. But when we're viewing another person as a tool for my well-being, we're not seeing that person clearly. A body of habitat, natural habitat, where you think, I could build a mall there, then we're not seeing it clearly. Greed distorts, hatred distorts, delusion distorts our vision and understanding of reality, so that by not acting upon these mental imbalances, one sees more and more chances to make wholesome and beneficial choices across one's relationships, personal, societal, and global. Free will. Time is running out, but it's very important. How about free will? It's been debated for as long as there's been philosophy, debated in theology, debated among scientists. They don't agree. Some neuroscientists say you have no free will, it's just the brain. The other ones say, no, the evidence is not conclusive. Philosophers, theologians, scientists have been debating it for as long as there's been any of the three. But what about a pragmatic definition? You're exerting free will if you have the freedom to make wise choices that are conducive to your own and others' well-being. In other words, you're not drunk. You're not stoned. You're not in a fit of rage. You're not obsessing. You're not a narcissist, just caught up, I am better than everybody else. You have free choice if you can act freely and wisely in ways that are conducive to your own and others' well-being. So it's not do you have it or not, it's how much do you have and can you cultivate more? That's pragmatic. So here, now to reiterate, when you identify any one of the three mental imbalances in your mind, quarantine yourself. And if everybody did that, we can't just make these mental imbalances go away, but when they surge up like active malaria, if you don't act, then all the world's problems could be solved if everyone did this. Attentional, extremely rich. I did my doctoral dissertation on this one. It's a sequence of cultivating, first of all, relaxation in a world that's incredibly uptight, stability, the inner stillness, the calm, and vividness, the clarity, the vividness, the acuity of attention in that sequence. Is a highly effective way to develop attentional intelligence is to cultivate mindfulness of breathing. While introspectively monitoring the mind, being aware of whether the mind is becoming excited or lax, noting that as soon as possible. And with practice, lo and behold, discoveries are made. For hundreds and hundreds of years, with practice, just cultivating mindfulness of breathing, anybody can do it. This gradually leads, first of all, to inner peace of mind. Your mind is calm, it's composed, it's clear. What a relief. I don't need to put my finger in the socket. It's not too painful just to be with my mind. No, I think I can handle it. A sense of genuine well-being, and lo and behold, surprises come. By just resting there in a mind and attention that's becoming more and more balanced, a sense of joy arises. That's a surprise. Who saw that coming? Because you're not looking at pleasant stimuli. It's not stimulus-driven. It's a symptom of a mind that's getting more and more balanced. Like a symptom of a really healthy body is it feels good. And then eventually, genuine well-being comes second. I skipped that one. A sense of inner well-being. And then a sense of joy arises. Each of these arises as a symptom of an intentionally balanced mind imbued with three qualities: relaxation, stability, vividness. William James, one of the great pioneers of Western psychology, he said, if there were an education system that taught children how to develop their attention, that would be the education system par excellence. He said that more than 100 years ago. And they've ignored him for 100 years now. Maybe it's time not to ignore him. He was very wise. Because if the kids don't have attention, they can't learn. Cognitive, this is huge. Overcoming acquired delusion. It's not just scientific materialism. You have to learn how to be a misogynist. Babies aren't misogynists. You have to learn how to be a racist. Nobody's naturally a racist. There are a lot of delusions. You have to learn it because you're not born with it. How do we overcome that? And so I'm going to just give a flat-out statement. It's what I see as reality. The world of scientific materialism, everything boils down to matter and energy. It's a fantasy. It's never existed. Such a world has never, ever existed. It's a fantasy that exists only in the minds of those who believe in it. It's a superstition. Not science, but this metaphysical system. And it fails to provide sufficient explanatory power for understanding the nature of mind and its role in nature. It's shooting blanks. It's shooting blanks. Now, scientific materialism has been critiqued for thousands of years, going back to Democritus in Greece, to Chavaka in India, thousands of people critiquing it all over the place. And it's here. And I've studied it extensively, and I've critiqued it as well. But among all the critics of scientific materialism, the ones that give the most devastating critique of scientific materialism is being presented by scientists with the deepest insight into the nature of the material world. Quantum cosmologists. Quantum physics generally is profoundly questioning the very notion of atoms and elementary particles existing out there independent of the system of measurement. Profoundly questioning that. But if they don't exist independently of measurement, they're not really out there, let alone the basis for everything else. And quantum cosmology, the cutting edge of quantum physics, goes even further. This is the absolute state-of-the-art cutting edge of modern physics. Quantum physics generally. Deepest insight in the nature of elementary particles and energy. And quantum cosmology applies that to the whole cosmos. It's breathtaking. And I know some of the people, the scientists on the cutting edge of that, they are smart. Here's one of them. Andrei Linda, Russian, American, has taught for years at Stanford. How's this? For a man right there on the cutting edge of modern physics. And he writes, without introducing an observer, we have a dead universe, which does not evolve in time. And this reemphasizes the role of the participant in the self-observing universe of quantum cosmology. The universe becomes alive, that is time-dependent. It changes. Only when one divides it into two parts, the subjective observer and the rest of the objective universe. And the wave function, straight from Schrödinger in quantum mechanics, the wave function that describes the nature of reality, the wave function of the rest of the objective universe depends on the time measured by the observer. That's breathtaking. And this is mainstream. This man is a senior professor at Stanford University. And he sums up, in other words, the evolution of the universe and everything in it, including life itself, is possible only with respect to the observer. And they're observers only because they are conscious. There's no observer without consciousness. He's not alone here. I've read some of the writings of other colleagues in that field, John Wheeler, and a number of others. This is not flake. This is core and deep. And materialism becomes as antiquated as a horse and buggy by this time. Overcoming conate, which many biologists and evolution and so forth think, no, if you're born to it, it's hard, it's in your genes, therefore you can't do anything about it. Not so fast. Overcoming conate delusion, it's a primary form of conate delusion, involves grasping to phenomena, including the mind, matter, subject, object, as existing in the way they appear. And the way they appear is everything separate. Everything has its own borders. Everything separate. Out there, separate, separate, separate. Whole bunch of separated phenomena seemingly existing independently. Countries, atoms, ecospheres, and so forth. Everything separate, separate. Then I'm separate. I'm over here, I'm over here. Radical separation of subject-object. And everything inherently real existing in and of itself. That's connate and it's delusional. Ask any ecologist, ask anybody in the field of quantum cosmology. It goes from the broadest to the most profound. The antidote for this involves recognizing how all conditioned phenomena, all phenomena that rise in dependence upon cosmic conditions, all of nature, everything, all of these conditioned phenomena emerge independently related to ways. They arise in dependence upon cause and conditions, prior causal conditions. If you see somebody that you find despicable, an individual, that person is awful, that person is abomination, that person is evil. Saying that, we're pointing the finger at that. Pointing at that person is so bad. You know what we've done in that moment? We've isolated that person from his history. No, that person, we don't look at all the causal conditions that gave rise to that behavior. And they're myriad. And we freeze when we do this. It's called reification. When we freeze ourselves, I'm hopeless. I'll never change. I'll never change. Reification. You weren't born this way, so therefore you can change. The environment, well, if it hasn't happened so far, it'll never happen. Global warming, but I don't see a problem. It's a really pleasant day out. In fact, it's chilly. Global warming, I don't think so. Not seeing the bigger picture, not seeing interdependence. Everything arises in independence of causal conditions upon constituents and parts and attributes. Wholes and parts, the whole of a person, the whole of an ecosphere, the whole of a biosystem, the whole of a company, the whole of a government. We have all of these wholes and they all arise independent upon the constituent parts. Take away the parts, they're no longer there. The whole is something we impute upon the parts, but it wasn't already there. And finally, the most subtle one, the fact that we so granulate, itemize, specify, isolate everything around us, other people. I like these people, I don't like those people. I like myself, no, I hate myself. This entity, this country, separate, separate, separate. It's ignoring the fact that the separations are not out there in nature. The separations are imputed by the conceptual mind. Just like the border, the 48th parallel between the United States and Canada. Has anybody ever tripped over that border? It's something we imputed upon dirt. And everything else like that. This is really, really deep. This is deep ontology. On the one hand, recognizing nothing exists on its own and everything arises in mutual interdependence. It's good science. It's good philosophy. It's authentic worldview. And here's one of my favorite recent philosophers. Brilliant man. Taught for like 40 years or so at Harvard. I read him extensively. Not a household name, but truly brilliant man. Hilary Putnam, Harvard philosopher. And he writes just this one statement I've lifted out. Elements of what we call language or mind penetrate so deeply into what we call reality that the very project of representing ourselves as being mappers of something language independent, really out there, is fatally compromised from the very start. It's language and thought that is making all the demarcations, bifurcation of subject-object, this and that, this and that, and this and that. But we see things as being totally separate. But it's because of language and thought that we're cutting everything into these pieces and then seeing them as independent. That's really deep philosophy. Realism with a human face, he calls it pragmatic realism. Oh, I could linger here a long time. Emotional intelligence, but time is running out. But I can't rush here. 4 sublime virtues. Nobody's got a monopoly on them. Religious, not religious, Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, scientific, whatever, but they are virtues, they are deep virtues. And there are 4 of them. Loving kindness. Well, the word love has so many. I love my motorcycle, I love chocolate fudge, I love my mother, I love... It's too big to be useful. I love you so much, I'll have to kill you if you leave. What does that mean? Loving kindness, that's we're not using that wonderful four-letter word. It's the aspiration that all beings may find happiness and the cause of happiness. It's just that. We're all interconnected. May we all be well. May we all not only find happiness, but cultivate the cause of happiness. May we all do so. It's benign, it's benevolent, it's a virtue. Everywhere you go, it's a virtue. The false facsimile of this sublime aspiration is self-centered attachment that may say, I love you, I love you, I love you, and yet it's all self-centered. I love you because I want something from you. It happens in romance all the time. It happens all over the place. I love you, I love you, I love you. And what I'm really saying, I want something from you, so I'm going to be really nice. But if you don't give it to me, I don't love you anymore. Like she's supposed to make me happy and she's not doing it. Find somebody else who will. The false facsimile is self-centered attachment, and its opposite is ill will. And this is semantics. If loving kindness is the wish, may everybody find happiness and its causes. Ill will is focusing on somebody we don't like. I don't want you to be happy. I don't want you to find the cause of happiness. And if I can prevent you, I will. That's ill will, the antithesis. Compassion, as I'm defining it here, is not an emotion. We often think compassion is an emotion. Well, and loving kindness is an emotion. Oh, I love you so much in my heart. Compassion is an aspiration in this definition. And it's the flip side of loving kindness, the aspiration that all beings may be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. Nobody wants to suffer. If I don't want to suffer, then I don't want anybody else to suffer either. And if I'm causing my own suffering, then I want to be free of that too, and I want other people to be free of suffering. Compassion is not only for those who are suffering. At a deeper level, imbued with wisdom, compassion is looking upon the evildoer, the hateful person, the greedy person, the narcissistic person. You are sowing the causes of misery, not only for other people. You're sowing the cause of misery for yourself. May you be free of the inner imbalances of your mind that cause you to behave this way. May you be healed. Your behavior is despicable. It's deplorable. But you aren't. Causing conditions that gave rise to this behavior. May you recognize the true causes of your behavior, which are so harmful, and giving you no happiness, they just give you anxiety. May you be free. That's deep compassion. Where you see the victimizer and the victim, and you feel compassion for both. That's deep. The false facsimile is despair, where we look upon another person's suffering or community suffering or the Metacrisis, and we think, oh, that's awful. I want to burst into tears and never stop crying. But it's hopeless. That's not compassion. It looks like compassion. Oh, buckets of tears. It's not compassion. It's despair. And the opposite, now linguistically, you'll see it immediately. What's the opposite of compassion? Is cruelty. And it's manifested, maybe even in our own lives on rare occasions. But it has manifested in history, where there are individuals who take delight in causing other people pain. Torture, abuse, exploitation, and they like it. It makes them feel powerful, makes them feel in control. It's cruelty. Human beings are cruel like no other species, can't have the capacity to be. The absolute antithesis of compassion. Two more. Empathetic joy. It's the aspiration that may beings never be separated of sublime well-being, never free of sublime well-being, free of suffering. Empathetic joy is also simply taking delight in others' joys. If you see a child really enjoying an ice cream cone, you don't brush it off, it's not my kid. You see the child really enjoying children playing in a field, playing joyfully, happily together, and you enter into their joy. When I was teaching at UC Santa Barbara, sometimes I'd go to the nearby little baseball field. And I watched these little kids, 8-year-olds, playing baseball, and their parents. And I would just enjoy their joy. I'm sitting quietly, I'm just this old geezer sitting in the bench. But seeing them really enjoying each other, good sportsmanship, having a lot of fun, the parents there, and saying, hey, we're living at peace, these children are not in danger. They're not in danger. And they're enjoying baseball. They're enjoying the comforts of life. It's a family that gets along well with each other, they enjoy each other's company, and taking delight in others' joys, simple joys. And then when we see virtue, we see an act of kindness. It sometimes brings tears to my eyes. Oh, that was so good. Tears of joy. When you see people acting totally selflessly and doing something simply wonderful in the world, whether it's just taking care of their children or whether it's working to push back global climate change, people doing good and rejoicing in it, sharing in their virtue by delighting in it. That's a wonderful virtue. It's a wonderful virtue. Impartiality runs through all the great religions of the world. We generally call it unconditional love, unconditional compassion. My compassion for you is not dependent on your behavior. Are you being nice? My love is not depending on you pleasing me. Are you pleasing me? Impartiality is the aspiration that all beings may dwell in impartiality, free of attachment to the people that we identify with, and aversion to the other side. People are not like us. We see this in the great religion. We see it in the teachings of Jesus, of Buddha, in many great sense, where the sense of caring, their empathy, their loving kindness, compassion is like one of those sprinklers that goes 360 degrees. And he just moistens everybody to whom it may concern. I'm here. I'm your hidden friend. You may not know it, but I am already your friend. And it doesn't matter who you are, and it doesn't matter how you behave. Imagine a psychiatrist in a mental hospital that only liked the people who weren't very insane. But oh, this guy's really, he's really, I can't stand me, so violent. That's not a doctor. You feel more compassion for the person who is violently insane than the person who's simply steeped in depression. Right? It's unconditional. The opposite of it is aloof indifference. I equally really don't care about anybody at all. The fool on the hill, just like that. That's not a virtue. It's just aloof indifference. It's stupidity. It's insensitivity. It may look like indifference, but it's not. And the antithesis is just the attachment to the people I identify with, whom I like, they treat me well, they respect me and so forth. But aversion to people I don't like, they don't behave well, they don't respect me, they're not treating me well. And divvying up the whole of humanity into three groups. I like, I don't like, and I don't care. All depending on how you're treating me and how you appear, agreeable, disagreeable, or boring. That's the opposite of dividing everybody up into like, don't like, and don't care. Coming closely to an end, here's one of my favorite images. Cultivating these four sublime virtues. When I first read about this, about 40 years ago, I'm blown away by, because I didn't make this up, I was just blown away by the wisdom of this. And that is, each of these four sublime virtues has a false facsimile that looks like it, but it's not. I've already given that. False facsimile of loving kindness, self-centered detachment. I love you, I give you this, but now I want something back. Am I getting back? No, I'm going to find somebody else to love. Right? False facsimile. It looks a lot like it. Despair can look a lot like compassion. Crying, oh, I'm so sorry, so sorry. Each has a false facsimile. But when loving kindness does succumb to self-centered attachment, we say, I've always thought, I love you, but now I'm seeing actually that was just, I love you because you're treating me well. You love me because you're gratifying my desires. When we see that loving kindness, a sublime virtue, is just drifted into or succumbed to self-centered attachment, which is all about me, then what rescues you from that? It's impartiality. Nice people and unnice people, attractive and unattractive, old or young, people of all different ethnicities, they all want to be happy equally. Animals too. And so when we see that we've just slipped into self-centered attachment, but we may be telling ourselves, no, I love, go back to impartiality. Looking from the other side, not just from your side, from the other side. People are not walking around thinking, I'm ugly or I'm bad or no, they just want to be happy. So the rescuer of loving kindness, when it slips into self-centered attachment, impartiality. Seeing everyone from their own side and everyone equally worthy of finding happiness. Empathetic joy can simply slip into, compassion. Especially in the face of the Metacrisis. Compassion can just slip into despair, depression, sadness, grief. But when it does, you're not seeing the whole picture. You're not seeing the whole picture. There's more to reality than the focus of your despair. And what can balance you out and lift you out of the trough of despair and hopelessness is empathetic joy. In the midst of the metacrisis, how many millions of people are doing the best they can to nurture the environment, protect other species, behave ethically responsibly with regard to the environment, and so how many people are really doing their best? In the corruption of government, how many lawmakers are really in there as public servants, doing their best? How many are in business, but they're really trying to run their businesses in ways that are benign to their employees and offering a product that really humanity needs? There's a lot out there, but when we fall into depression, we don't see that. We see only the negative. Balance out. Focus on empathetic joy, attending to, focusing on the virtue, the goodness in the world, and it will balance you out. Empathetic joy, taking delight in virtue and happiness, can just slip into, isn't life grand? Enjoying your hedonic pleasures, enjoying being wealthy, enjoying having good appearance, nice looking, enjoying good health, enjoying a happy family. Oh, life is good. Thank you, God. Life is good. Oh, I really love my life. Where do you want to go for vacation? Tahiti or Hawaii? I've heard Tahiti is really more interesting. And it's just hedonia. It's just hedonia. There's nothing, animals do that. That's not a virtue. It's just fixation on hedonia. But loving kindness that is wishing for oneself as well as all others, genuine well-being and its causes, that will lift you right out of hedonic fixation. You see, this is a cheap imitation. Just going on great vacations. I've been on a number of them. Some of them turned out to be miserable. Didn't plan it that way. And all the rest of them turned out being forgettable. Like having a really good dream. I've been all over the world. I've been on vacation. I've traveled widely all over the world, more than 30 countries. Can't remember most of them. A few little snapshots here and there, you know. And the pleasures that I had, sensual pleasure, they're just memories. And then they're not even that. So loving kindness is enduring, it's satisfying. And finally, one can get burnout. I think it happens in the medical field. I've spoken with, in a big hospital, spoken before grand rounds of all the doctors and nurses, and gave a talk in a big medical hospital. Burnout is everywhere, among the nurses especially and so forth. Burnout, can't do it anymore. I'm going to find something else to do. We can be burnout in social services, burnout in medicine, burnout working for the environment. Burnout, it's just, can't do it anymore. I quit. I quit. That's the world's problem. I didn't cause it, and I can't solve it. So, oh, the heck with it. I'm going to try to find a nice, cozy place, someplace where people don't bug me. And I'm going to just weather it. Aloof indifference. I can't deal with it anymore. I can't care anymore. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm depleted. Can't do it. Until you come back, who's going to rescue your impartiality from aloof indifference? It's coming back to compassion. When you see a child that's crying, can you really maintain your aloof indifference when you could help the child? When you see somebody's really hungry, somebody's really sick and has no medical care. People living in a war zone, we know of a few. How much suffering did the people in those two places have gone through and are going through? Probably more than we can imagine. Focus there. You can't be indifferent. You can't be, because they're just like us. They're just like us. Nobody's bombing Crestone. Isn't that nice for us? But what if you're just waiting for the bomb to hit your house and kills your children? You can't focus on other suffering and maintain the aloof indifference. Compassion rescues you. We're coming to the end. The grand finale, the climax, spiritual intelligence. And it contains fathoming the sacred. It can be known. Check in with any of the great contemplatives over the last 5,000 years. Can the sacred, the ultimate, can it be fathomed and not simply worshipped or revered? And it's an affirmation that there is an irreducible dimension of reality that has throughout ages and cultures, very diverse, inspired in human beings a sense of reverence, awe, and devotion. That's the sacred. reverence, awe, and devotion. It is that which transcends our ordinary, limited, and mortal existence and is realized as its ultimate ground and consummation. The ultimate ground of reality is not matter. That's just superstition. Is there an ultimate ground of reality, and can it be known? What is the consummation, the fulfillment, the perfection of existence? Can we realize it, or is it always an unreachable ideal? Because that dimension of reality exists, it is that which moves us towards the sublime. Evolution biology never touches this. When, there have been so many cases, East and West, it's a prince, it's a person from a wealthy background, and then they leave it all behind to become a monk, a nun, a contemplative. They're all over the place. They found the best of samsara, and they say, it's not good enough. It never provides satisfaction. I'm going to get old, I'm going to get sick, and I'm going to die. So what's this worth? And giving it up and turning oneself to the pursuit of knowing the ultimate, knowing the sublime, knowing the holy. It is that which moves us. There's something within us that does not let us be satisfied with having this much sensual gratification, power, wealth, prestige. Not satisfied. And either we foolishly, with cognitive unintelligence, say, well, I'll just get more of the same and see how that turns out. Or we wake up, and there are so many cases of the great contemplative mystics of the history who had a really happy background and gave it all up to pursue something greater. It is that which moves us towards the sublime, and it's the culmination of humanity's striving. It is the meaning and purpose of existence. It's fathoming the sacred, the sublime. Coming to an end. Such a transcendent ultimate reality is known as the sacred. Make it a noun. Understood in different ways, but of course it's understood in different ways. We're not monolithic. We don't have one creed that satisfies everybody else. And that's something to be celebrated. Celebrated. That there are multiple traditions of wisdom. And some are more suitable for these kind of individuals, this and this and this. It's suitable for different people. And once one has an intimation that such a reality exists, the sacred, then, given that, then objects, rituals, books, places, and even certain individuals can become sacred for us because they each in some way point to or even an expression of the holy. I know people like that. You very likely do too. Of individuals who so embody the sublime. I believe in the sublime because I've seen it manifested here. Places, holy places. I remember visiting one holy place in Tibet years ago, leading a pilgrimage. And one man came to a holy cave. I will just leave it a little bit anonymous. He just broke down into tears, moved by the holiness of this cave where a great, great adept had dwelled. It's places, it can be texts, it can be objects, holy relics, but it can be people too. And all over the place, no religion has monopoly. But somebody who embodies the sublime, the sacred, the holy, said this is a holy being and worthy of reverence. So spiritual intelligence develops the discerning, open-minded sense of reverence for and commitment to fathoming, not being satisfied merely to worship, to revere, to so forth, be religious, but to seek to fathom this ultimate domain of reality in which coming to know the sacred radically transforms and liberates the individual. Scientists know many, many things. I applaud them. But very few, if any, objects of scientific knowledge radically transform or liberate the individual. It's not what it was made for. It's not failing. But contemplative inquiry, and I have met people like this. I've lived with them. People have devoted themselves to contemplative inquiry, and their whole being is transformed. Whole being is transformed. I'll just give one example. About 40 years ago, and I was living in a contemplative retreat for months on end, until my visa ran out. But I dropped in on a much senior contemplative. And I just knocked on the door. He didn't really know me, maybe at all, or barely knew me. I knocked on the door. He said, come, come. He's living in this really primitive hut. Really, really primitive. Just 4 walls and a ceiling. No water, no toilet, nothing. And he said, come, welcome. And I walked in. And he saw me. his face just burst into joy. His smile just filled his whole face, and his eyes lit up. He was so happy, so joyful, just spontaneously. And I don't think he even knew me. It wasn't, oh, this is a special person that's come. Oh, he's so handsome, or anything like that. Just a sentient being walked in, and he responded with joy, with warmth, with kindness. That was all about him. And I've met a number of people like that. I've been tremendously blessed by encountering such people. They are dwelling in a field of well-being, and it naturally gives rise to compassion, naturally gives rise to loving kindness. And they're holy beings. They're holy beings. And we all have that capacity. We all have that capacity. We can develop some really bad habits. Habits can be formed, they can be broken, including conate. Even those can be overcome. The evidence is there. That's not speculation. Fathoming the sacred, the ultimate aspiration. And so we end on the notion of aspiration. We're facing tremendous, unprecedented challenges that will bring tremendous suffering and pain to many, many, many people. But in the midst of that, may we rise to the challenges of the metacrisis and forge a future for humanity in which we flourish as never before. And we're not helpless. One individual in the face of this massive momentum, we're not helpless. Every place can become an oasis of virtue. By filling with virtuous people, every place can become an oasis of people cultivating greater and greater mental balance of 6 kinds. Any place can be. You don't have to be religious, you don't have to believe this or that. Any individual can become an oasis of virtue. Any individual can become an embodiment of sanity, of mental balance. And everyone who does is making a contribution to humanity during the metacrisis and beyond. None of us are helpless. We collectively made the metacrisis. We individually can be remedying it, one person by one person, community by community. And then, glory, hallelujah, we can join hands with others, be they Muslim, be they humanist, be they Christian or Hindu, whatever worldview, we can join hands with those around the world who wish to heal the world and contribute to everyone's genuine well-being. And we can rejoice in that even in the midst of the metacrisis. We're not helpless. And we can envision the far side and sow all the seeds for it. To a civilization that is truly civilized in the sense that everybody in the civilization behaves in a civil way. That's civilization. Not how much technology or industrialization or wealth or power you've acquired. But a civilization is one in which the people in the civilization treat each other within the civilization with courtesy and respect. They're civil. And treat other species with courtesy and respect, with caring. We can do that. That's real civilization. And not just civilization because you're wealthier and powerful. So that's it. I'll read it once again and we'll draw this to a close. May we rise to the challenges of the metacrisis and forge a future for humanity in which we flourish as never before. And that takes imagination. That takes vision. But we can do it. We can make that future. So there we are. As one old sage said, I've emptied my satchel. I have nothing more to offer. That's it. There's nothing left. So I wish you all well. Thank you for coming. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for joining us to hear this important message. As we've seen, greed, hatred, and delusion can hijack our extraordinary human intelligence and capabilities. But these causes of the metacrisis have a hopeful remedy. The sixfold matrix of mental balance offers a way to mitigate the root causes of the metacrisis, showing us how to direct our intentions and our incredible capacities toward a new era of human flourishing instead. At the CCR, we are engaged in expanding access to the Sixfold Matrix curriculum, not just to individuals independently, but to children and young adults in schools and ultimately at institutions worldwide. If you'd like to join us on this mission to fathom the mind and heal the world, please sign up for our newsletter explore our library of dozens of hours of free talks and guided meditations, or make a gift to expand the impact of this approach far and wide. You can find links for all of these in the video description below. Thank you, and we wish you the best as we work together to cultivate a better future.